everybody, welcome to Our Culture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Josh, my friend, on today's news, Diablo 4's microtransactions are ridiculous.
We have news on Netflix's new AAA game.
And we kind of know. We pretty much know what game's going to be at the Xbox Showcase because they're teasing it heavily AF. And I want to talk about the Xbox Showcase in general. But first up, Diablo 4's microtransactions being ridiculous. Can't say we didn't see this coming.
I know,
because
microtransactions in a Diablo game, Scott Tailford. Hey.
Is it Diablo Immortal again? Is this a badly timed April Fool's joke? No. So yeah, obviously Diablo 4 is out soon. I think it's out on the 6th or the 8th. It's out very, very soon, next few days. And the game's been reviewing very, very well, but the game's storefront wasn't live during the review period. However, Blizzard did supply reviewers with footage of the storefronts, apparently like HD video or whatever of what the storefront was going to look like with the pricing and everything else. So this news story is just flagging that it's as insane as you imagine. And everything is cosmetic, so obviously they can hide behind the whole, you don't need it at all. It's not game breaking, but it's worth flagging this stuff just to keep an eye on Diablo overall, because Diablo Immortal's microtransactions were insane. So for Diablo 4, they're charging $30 for an armor set. You can also get horse armor for between $16 and $20, which I'm going to make one comparison here before. Just, you remember when the Oblivion horse armor was a thing? Do you remember how much that was?
It was, well, I want to say $6.
It was less than that.
Was it?
In America anyway, it was $2.50.
That's crazy.
What? I was it $2.50? I was like 2 pence? Yeah, no, they have cents over there for all of our American listeners. But yeah, the horse armor controversy for the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, which was a massive controversy back in the late 2000s of, oh my god, how could they possibly charge for an item in a video game? Look how far we've come.
Look how far we've come, Scott Tailford. Scott, that's outrageous. That is, of course, outrageous, but I'm not surprised. I've seen the headlines doing the rounds yesterday. You know, I've seen the fact that reviewers only got footage of how the store works rather than access to the store itself, which, by the way, I know isn't this, but I imagine Blizzard just sent a footage of a guy handing over a £5 note and receiving
here's everything
in return, like one of those bad infomercials.
Oh, that's Sony one where this is how you buy stuff in Diablo 4.
Precisely, man. It absolutely sucks, but it seems like it's Blizzard's MO right now, and certainly Activision's MO. I think it particularly is damaging to Diablo 4 in particular, because unlike Diablo Immortal, which received a lot of flack, this isn't a free-to-play game. This is something you're paying $70 for or $100 for if you get the deluxe version of it at launch, and then you're expected or encouraged, because of course these are only cosmetics, you're encouraged to buy these things on top of the loot that's already in the game. And it's a storefront, and it's a pricing model that's worked in other Activision games. For instance, if you boot up Call of Duty Warzone right now, it won't be outrageous to find skins that are worth $20, that are worth $16, that are maybe even worth up to $30 when you add in all of the bundles and stuff. But again, Call of Duty Warzone, and I'm not excusing it, that's also a free-to-play game.
Well, that's the thing. So at the minute, obviously there's a whole thing going on over on the Diablo Reddit, over on Diablo fandoms and everything else, just saying we kind of knew this was going to be happening because of Diablo Immortal. But like you said, if they're charging $70 and more for the base game, then how the hell can one individual skin be £30, be $30? It's almost half of the entire game for one cosmetic skin. It is just the idea of how much can we fleece you for, what will you actually pay for, how much does the Diablo fandom, how much will they respond to this stuff? And it's been so long since Diablo 3. It's been 11 years.
Yeah.
So there's a big build up here for a lot of people to make a lot of money out.
And look, it doesn't sound as egregious as Diablo 3's initial microtransactions. The fiasco with the auction house in that game, which just was absolutely outrageous to the point where it had to be completely changed. This is just the kind of microtransaction model that we're used to, but it is still just a shame to see, especially when it's going to be something that we don't really have full working knowledge of until after the game is out. I always hate it when you don't get full clarity on these things in reviews, and while you do, while it's not completely locked in the same way that other Activision titles have been in the past, where the store isn't even there at launch, and then it comes a month later or 2 weeks later, so it literally can't be in a review. We have footage of it, like you said, we know it's there at least, but this is something that you want to be operational original, you want to have a full understanding of, in my opinion, before you jump into it, because yes, it is non-essential, but at a certain point in the end game, when you've finished everything, you have to assume it's going to be kind of like the lifeblood of the game.
Well,
right?
the reason I'm flagging this stuff is because, like I said, they try to do right by reviewers and supply them with footage of what the eShop, I'm calling it the eShop, but the online store is going to look like. But there was a whole thing with Blizzard holding back on how much footage can be in their reviews. I saw Eurogamer and Skiller both saying they're going to wait and do reviews later on when they know exactly what the game is going to be when it goes live. So I'm flagging this stuff just as, just be aware of the Blizzard's own history. Look at Diablo Immortal. Look at how much they've fleeced the fan base going forward. Diablo 4 also has a battle pass. It's $10, or you can pay for an accelerated version for, I think it's 14 or whatever, or 28 or something for the more accelerated version. So there's a lot of different ways to just mine your love for this IP and get as much money out of it as possible. The battle pass is also cosmetic, but still.
This is not something that is exclusive to Blizzard.
No.
It's something that's been happening across all games, but certainly Activision games recently is having like 3 different battle passes. I go back to Call of Duty because that's the thing that I'm more familiar with, but Call of Duty Warzone and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 just introduced essentially a premium battle pass on top of the regular battle pass,
right,
which you can't buy, if I recall, with in-game coins. This is just a $25 transaction, I think, and you get some slightly different skins at the end of it, along with a few different items. So it's like a battle pass system, which was already, a tough asking price for some, because the bulk of the content that you're getting from that is often like emblems and charms that you will never ever use. That's becoming even more nickel and dime now, Scott Tilford, because you have like 3 different versions of them that allows you to skip the grind that you're already paying to indulge in. And it's that stuff, man, where you just think, I want to like these games. I want to talk about like the strengths and the weaknesses of the game design. I want to analyze it in those terms. I want to champion games that, run really well and have really interesting game mechanics. But it always comes down to this. It always comes down to this egregious stuff.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I said, the game's reviewing really, really well. The demo / the beta or whatever was pretty positive. I played through that. I enjoyed my time with it. I just think it's worth flagging this stuff because there's always some way, especially for a Blizzard, to just get in there and go, did you like the game a lot? Because we can also just monetize this stuff as well. Just to keep an eye on it, because obviously the game is going to be coming out in the next few days. There's a 4-day early access period, might be 2, but there's an early access period if you pay more. So a lot of this stuff should start entering the discourse in the next few days, and we'll see how it goes. Next story down is Netflix committing to a AAA game, recruiting a hell of a star-studded team for this. This was announced by Raf Grassetti over on Twitter. Now, he is God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok's art director, saying that he's teaming up with Joseph Staten, Jerry Edsall, and Chaco Sonny to make a AAA game for Netflix. Now, Raf Grassetti, like I said, worked on God of War. Joseph Staten, one of the creators of Halo. Edsall worked on Gears 4 and 5, and Sonny was a producer on Overwatch. So that is interesting. My cynic gamer industry brain goes to, this is going to be the safest project in the world.
My
you never know.
Cynic gamer brain goes to the conclusion of, this is never going to release. That is a star-studded team, like you said, man, but every single time a big streamer or a tech company that isn't known for video games gets into the gaming space, it's very rare that they actually produce any of the things they set out to develop. I mean, look at Amazon and its many, many failed games. It's cancelled Lord of the Rings MMO. It's restarted Lord of the Rings MMO.
God, yeah.
All of these companies try to get in on video games, and they recruit interesting people because obviously they need people they can trust and who have experience, but it's just so rare that, 1, anything ever comes out, and 2, that thing is what it should be, or something that moves the needle. I don't know, man. Again, very cynical, very negative take on this, but Netflix is a company I do not trust. They are hemorrhaging money. They are hemorrhaging subscribers. They have not had a good idea in like 7 years. They've just announced the thing that you have to now pay extra money to share your account.
Yeah.
And it's just like they are on this downward trajectory, and I hope this is the anomaly. I hope this is the thing that gets them back on track, but I can't ignore the direction that they're moving in.
Hey, do you want another crime thriller series that's 10 episodes long and has a plot twist in the final episode?
I think I'm alright.
Because we might have another 10 of them.
Great.
That's what we have. But yeah, I think in terms of, like you said, Netflix need to decide what the hell they are. I think in terms of their foray into gaming, it has been interesting. promising or a talking point, seeing them make the Stranger Things game. They've bought the Oxenfree devs, and there are various games on the Netflix app that you can stream. You know, they're trying to get into. The thing is, like, they're trying to get into, like, you know, an access point for Netflix games. A AAA game, that would mean that you'd have to have something that rivals Xbox streaming service, something that would just make it work, or like PlayStation Now style, or whatever. And whether or not that's true is a whole other thing. There's a lot more data involved in streaming a game than there is in a TV show or a movie. So we'll see. But in terms of the talent behind it, it's promising.
Yeah, it is.
Kinda?
No, it is.
I just want
absolutely.
Joseph Staten to be happy. Dude's been shackled to Halo Infinite for the last like few years and got nowhere with it. He's free.
Well, that's it. Like, I'm not going to pass.
free.
I don't know exactly what Joseph Staten did with Halo Infinite. I don't know if he was instrumental in making it better, but I know that he didn't save it in the same way that we all thought he might save it. And maybe that was entirely unrealistic. One person cannot come in and save a game as big as Halo Infinite, which has all of these moving parts, especially how late in development he jumped on board that project.
He's like Atlas holding up the entire Xbox brand. I've got it, guys. I've got it.
It seemed like a valiant effort, and I hope, you know, you want to hope with the talent involved, they can create something good. That is when the kind of cynicism has to kind of fade for me, and I have to hope for the best, because, I mean, realistically, we're not seeing this project for 4 years at least, if everything goes smoothly. Game development is hard. It seems like it's day zero. They're building the studio. It's going to be a long time before this comes to fruition, if it ever does. And who knows if Netflix will be around by then.
Well, there is that. What if it's another thing like Bandersnatch?
I loved Bandersnatch.
If they do something else,
frosting mint.
do something else like that. Kind of like that new Silent Hill thing that's coming out, where it's all cinematic and all of us contribute to the way the story rolls out. Maybe they find a new way of delivering video game content that's still classed as a AAA game. I have no idea. Netflix making video games. Who'd have thunk it? But next story down is just the fact that Xbox are directly teasing Fable. They had a developer cover their house in glitter and then follow a camera, follow it all the way around their house, leading to a TV that showed the Xbox showcase with the date on for June 11th. And obviously a trail of glitter, it's very Fable. The music in the teaser is very Fable. We've needed to see an update on Fable for what, like 5 years now?
5
or something?
years, yeah.
So I just want to use this as a talking point to say that assumedly one game that will be there will be Fable. Thoughts on the Xbox and Fable?
Looking forward to it. I really am. I genuinely am. This is the thing I'm optimistic about.
Okay.
I like Playground Games, obviously the developers of the new Fable. They've not made anything like this before, which, you know, there are warning signs there, but it's also exciting to see them, you know, spread their wings, do something that isn't a racer in the kind of the same way, hopefully, that Guerrilla Games moved from first-person shooters to third-person action RPGs, with going from Killzone to Horizon, of course. And, you know, after 5 years or maybe even more in development, after the initial trailer that we saw, and after a few years of silence, I think it's time to see what the game looks like, and hopefully, Scott, it looks good. Based on Xbox's track record, though, I don't know.
I'm curious. I always thought it was interesting that they went back to Fable. Like when it was first teased, that came after Fable Legends got canned. That came after Fable 4's plans were leaked. That game, they didn't go ahead with that one either. In terms of like what the future of Fable is, now it seems like it's a reboot, a soft reboot or something, and you give it to a dev that I think are from Leamington Spa.
Maybe.
So you want to get they're a dev who are UK based. They can assumedly get the same sense of humor that Peter Molyneux and the Lionhead guys brought to the game in the first place that made Fable what it is. Fable, though, as their initial trilogy, obviously dropped the F off with Fable 3. It was one of the initial game controversies of, oh my god, what the hell have they built?
Yeah.
And I always thought that the Fable name was a little bit tarnished because of that. However, I still think Fable 2 is one of the best RPGs of all time, and I love my time with Fable 1, but that was specifically because I wasn't following the marketing, because I was a young little man in school, so I just got to play that game, not realizing all the lies Peter Molyneux had said.
I'm going to drop a confession for you right now,
Do it.
and you guys are invited to hear this, into my booth to hear this. Never liked Fable. Never liked the original Fable games. Tried so hard to get into them. The vibe that you just described, that Lionhead Studios brought to the table, the personality of those games, the humor of those games, the aesthetic of those games, is pretty much everything I don't want from a fantasy series.
So you don't want to be nicknamed Chicken Chaser?
I don't want to be nicknamed Chicken Chaser, and I don't want to do that Cockney accent because I'd butcher it. But
you can go kick a chicken up the arse,
You
mate.
can, of course you
flying?
can. And look, I'm not saying like everything has to revolve around me or anything like that, but the reason that I'm interested in this Fable is that it is presumably a new take. I'm sure it will have a lot of the elements that people love from the series. Of course, people will demand that. The diehard fans obviously deserve that to a certain extent. But I want to see what Playground Games can do with this universe and put their own imprint on this. Of course, you know, does not mean I wanted the way things went with Lionhead to go that way. They were a very talented studio and stuff, but I would have loved to have seen them kind of move on to something else that wasn't Fable, and then to see what other teams could do with this property. And I'm hoping that is going to be what we get.
Yes, I think think that's the thing. I think like the idea of like, is Fable it? Like you mentioned about not necessarily being a fan. Like it's been so long. It's been over 10 years since Fable 3. Is there a whole new generation of gamers that are just? I guess it could go both ways. Either they go, oh my god, it's this whole new sort of kind of Monty Python-esque RPG called Fable. Oh my god, that's so cool. Or does it have the reaction that people like us would have, where it's like, well, that thing kind of went off the boil over the course of the trilogy, or it was never for me, or it was a bit too English with all those kind of accents, or whatever. Maybe they try and walk that line.
Well, I mean, you know, taking my biases aside, I think even as a fan of the games,
Yes.
you might agree that the series never fulfilled its potential, and not just in terms of what Peter Molyneux used to say about it, you know, in terms of the things that he envisioned. I always felt like Fable 2, by all accounts, was a really great game, really sophisticated game compared to the first, but then, like you said, Fable 3 had that issue that a lot of 3s at the time had, including Mass Effect 3 and Dead Space 3, where it kind of streamlined what people liked about the game, at least mechanically, and made it simpler, made it more quote-unquote accessible, and that didn't really necessarily sit well with a lot of fans. Hopefully this, to me, is going to kind of fulfill that potential that Fable 1 and 2 promised. Not in terms of the granular, you'll plant a tree, the tree will grow instances, but it's just in terms of being a robust and complex game with deep mechanics and deep consequences to your actions and a lot of fun on top of that.
I think there's a way to do, because for me, Fable 2 and the Fable IP was all about sort of tapping into like storybook fantasy, like the kind of stories that you read when you're a kid. Lord of the Rings light, like more like The Hobbit than Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And like I think there's a way to do that. I think there is a massive niche in the market, especially after Lord of the Rings Gollum, to do something like that. And I feel like that tone was what elevated it so much. The whole idea in Fable 2 that you could never actually die, it just meant that you got a scar if you got knocked down, because the hero always comes back. I always liked ideas like that, and making this sort of swashbuckling fantasy game. I think that they could do it in terms of the appeal of the IP overall. And God knows Xbox needs something to turn heads, which I think that we'll get with Starfield. I hope we get that anyway. But yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below of all 3 news stories: Diablo 4's Microtransactions, the next Netflix AAA game, and the state of Xbox, and Fable. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
Check this video right here, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.